right. Alrighty. So we have been delving ridiculously deep, like in the depths of domain one. And domain one, where I'm going to roll back from 93. And guys, not for nothing, the end of our quest with domain one is at 115 slides. What we did with our deep dive was go into each competency, break it down to its bare bones, and practice questions. And that's what we ended up with. So we're in the last leg. And domain one is, in effect, 100% standard one of our legal obligation as teachers, like what we have to know and what we need to be able to do in the classroom. And so within domain one, it's all about our ability to plan effective instruction and assessment that is appropriate for all students. And I'm going to ask everyone to please mute themselves if you haven't already done so until we get to the questions portion of it. So it's all about designing instruction and assessment for all students. And for all students, it's it's like a suitcase with a whole bunch of junk inside of it. It's not just all students wherever they are developmentally, like age group, wherever they are on that day. If they had a horrible thing that happened in their life, that can mess up and impede on effective instruction. And so taking all of that into consideration holistically, who our students are as humans, getting to know them, where they are developmentally, what are their skill sets, what is their language proficiency, what do they like, what is their home life like, because all of it matters and all of it has an effect on whether or not we are effective or not. And it does, because if we don't pay attention to it and provide appropriate scaffolds, just appropriate supports, mind you, again, these are children, little bitty humans, appropriate supports to sort of negate whatever it is that is a barrier, whether it be home life, developmental, language barrier, other barrier. Our job is to assess the situation, know who our audience is, and plan specifically for them to be able to achieve the state standards. So domain one breaks it down in 4 ways, and it breaks it down human development and all of the theoretical knowledge that goes with human development and the human in all of its capacity, cognitively, their brain development, physically, social, emotionally, maturity wise, affective development, their development of self and how they see themselves and their self-confidence and their ability to speak for themselves and be an agent for themselves. All of those things in that continuum, we have to remember to think about where they are, the little humans, and plan accordingly and be responsive to their developmental characteristics and their needs. So there was a lot of slides dealing with that, and all of it having to do with competency one. I will not go over all of it because it literally will take too long. The next huge chunk, and it was a biggie, was diversity. We spent like 2 weeks on this, guys, because there's so many ways in which diversity, that word, comes into play in teaching. Not in just the fact that our students are vastly diverse. Obviously, they don't come from the same families, they have different experiences, different skill sets, all of that. They're diverse, but also we have to be diverse in the types of activities that we plan and think about and provide them with diverse opportunities to show what they know, which means we're not sticking to just one type of assessment, one type of measurement, like the easy way of recording in the gradebook. That's not the goal. The gradebook is not the goal. The goal of assessments and grades to begin with is not to put children in a hierarchy of superiority of intellect. It is to gauge, is our plan working? The plan that we thoughtfully crafted specifically for the audience, the little humans that we have in our classroom, is it working? And we can tell if it's working or not based on the assessment. we're really testing ourselves, not the students, and using it as a guide, collecting that data. All students can learn. All students can be motivated. I might not be the person to motivate them, but it's still my job to investigate. Do they need motivation from some type of person? Someone else? Can I get them that support, that investigation, that care and constant looking to understand who your students are? And they're going to be diverse. Expect them. I think that's on one of the slides. Expect your students to be different. In no way, shape, or form are they going to be same. Not even in the same family will they be the same. I have had students where I'm like, oh, I had your brother. Not the same person, not the same deal. Difference. And that difference needs to be mirrored in our planning and in our assessments. The third competency within Domain 1 is all about the state curriculum and the TEKS, and how to properly sort of craft and compose a learning objective, an academic objective that can be measured, that is clear, that is aligned with the state curriculum, which is the TEKS, and to be able to do that consistently. Clarity, relevance, significance, making sure it's age appropriate. That the first, I mean, I should put that at the clarity is pretty much number one, but also is, can it be assessed? Because I don't care how clear it is of an objective. If it can't be assessed, we shouldn't be doing it. It can't be assessed. So, which brings us to our last leg, how learning occurs. This is like a compilation, really, of everything that we've been doing. We talked about all of the different human growth and development sort of characteristics in the different age groups: early child, middle child, pre-adult, the different ways our students are different, and the ways in which learning or implementation of the standards has to take place. So how do we mesh that all together, all of it together, so that learning occurs, everything that we've had before? So let's take a look. Competency 4 and Domain 1 is all about, it's all about the teacher understanding the learning processes. We've already talked about them. And the factors that impact student learning, we already talked about them. And you demonstrate this knowledge by planning effective, engaging instruction, and you can't have an instruction without assessment. It's cyclical. We instruct and we assess to see if it's working so that we can formulate a new plan or a better plan or move on to a new plan. We have to have that assessment. So whatever we're instructing must be assessed, not to give a grade, but to see, are you mastering this? Is this working? Are these strategies working? Is this activity effective? Do I need to re-instruct by modeling again in a different way, doing something different so that the student can gain access to that knowledge? If you'll notice, it says you're taking everything we've learned and utilizing it to plan that effective, that second part, engaging instruction. Now, a lot of teachers, and this is like, there's a lot of different debates going on about education right now, but one of them is about whether or not teachers should have to be engaging. Like, should I, as a student, need to be engaged or entertained, if you will? Engagement is just semantics for entertained. I'm not really going to be engaged if I'm not interested in some form or fashion or entertained. And so, yes, it does behoove us, because we know that's the way the human brain works. And if our objective is, in fact, effective instruction and student mastery, then engaging instruction must and will take place. And there are particular ways of achieving this. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to look at our audience. It's not going to be engaging the same thing for each year, for each class period. It's going to be different because the students are different. And that takes us investing the time to see what makes them tick. What does interests them? What is their life like? And how can I make connections between what we are doing and their life in order to be more engaging? Apply your theory appropriately. So now I'm breaking down that competency. That's the overarching competency. But within that competency, there's a lot of little things we need to remember in order for that to take place, in order for us to utilize everything that we know to plan effective and engage in instruction and also appropriate assessments. So things that we must, in order to do that effectively, take into consideration. We have to apply theory appropriately. We talked about the theory. We talked about it in competency 1. We talked about a little bit in competency 2, dealing with diversity, but for sure in competency 1, dealing with learning theory, dealing with human growth theory, utilizing what we know about learning theory and the instructional process, utilizing what we know about instructional strategies that are appropriate for students. And we know what's appropriate for for particular special populations of students. And FYI, I always say ELL strategies are best strategies for literally everyone. Also special ed, literally everyone benefits from having these implemented. But it is our job to implement them, especially with those particular students that need it. Utilizing the instructional strategies and appropriate technologies in order to facilitate student learning, in order to facilitate student mastery. And that means connecting new information to ideas, new information and ideas to prior knowledge. Remember, think of prior knowledge as a lasso that we use to connect to the new information and ideas, that students' prior knowledge that is already within themselves. And so us igniting that and utilizing that is so incredibly strong for solidification of the learning. They can hear you say it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't connected it to prior knowledge, the connection isn't there. You just said something and they heard it, and it goes in one ear and out the other. If you utilize things that they are familiar with, that is in their bank of prior knowledge, that is in their home life, that is in their experiences, that is in their interests, they're going to make connections that are strong. It will be like a rope, a lasso, not just in one ear, out the other. Try to make learning meaningful and relevant to students and fun. I recently was doing I say recently, but it was like last fall. It wasn't this, not last fall, last spring, but I was visiting a student and we were talking about, and I say student, but he was an intern and he was a teacher. So I go with just a small group of students that are assigned to me, and I go do their observations when they're first year teachers, interns in my area, like San Antonio, Austin, and surrounding areas. So talking to the student, I don't know him. I don't recognize his name at all. And then it just comes out that he was at the high school that I taught at for a very long time. I said, oh my goodness, I was a teacher there, blah, blah, blah. And then I just mentioned a project that me and my best friend teacher started just as a fun thing to do with the students. And it became like a tradition. And then it moved on to actually other campuses that I taught with other teachers. And I took it with me to other campuses, and the other people asked, can we do this? The 6-word memoir project. And that student didn't have me. And I had already moved to another school when he did the project, but it still continued there. And he was like, this was like he had his picture and he brought it up, and it was not like coming up with something or being part of something that was fun or exciting, something that an adult holds on to in their adult life. A picture in their phone is a big deal. We can do that by just taking the time to put a little bit of effort to make things memorable and fun and exciting for them. And it should be. It's their learning experience, and not to be all, fanciful, but it should be magical a little bit. And more often than not, it's not. And we can fix that. You guys can fix that. We all do our little parts. How small kids learn. Now, remember, this is just sort of like the compilation of what we have been discussing. We've been discussing human growth theory, learning theories dealing with diversity and the way diverse populations learn and need particular supports. This one is dealing with students that are small. EC6, those young children. Understanding that young children think concretely, meaning they have to see it. Children learn through experience. In the very beginning, Piaget tells us that one of the markers of like a baby coming into cognition, really their brain is really starting to think on a level that is commensurate with what we know to be competent thoughts, when they have object permanence. And it's just the brain figuring out, you know what, just because I can't see that the object doesn't mean it's not here anymore. And infants don't have that. Their brain literally cognitively, the way it's developed, it doesn't do it yet. And so at that basic level, they couldn't know that if their mom's face is still behind her hands, even though it's like peekaboo. And it's like, oh my God, where did my mom go? And there she is. Oh my goodness, I thought she was gone. They literally think that. Where did the bunny go? Behind my back. It's gone all the way. It's literally left the building. It's not that same way, but in a more developed manner with our early children. They have only the ability to understand things that they've seen and understood before, things that have been explained, elucidated, things that they've manipulated and concretely sort of understood after a while. That's the concrete, and why we need to provide. And what we take from this, the implications, guys, is that if we have early children, then we need to have a lot of activities where they're doing and seeing and manipulating. We can't just go into the front of the class and say, this is the way that it is. Let me explain to you the way that, let me show you or read to you the way. No, that's not the way their brain works. Their brain literally cognitively is unable to do that because they haven't been developed enough. They don't have enough sensory input yet to abstract, to come up with something that they have not yet seen before, but maybe makes sense logically. They're not there yet. And so because they're thinking concretely and they rely primarily on motor and sensory input, direct experience, empirical data, we have to provide myriad, multiple, manifold opportunities for them to build and learn via those very necessary, concrete motor and sensory input activities. So developmentally appropriate learning experiences and assessments. We have to use that knowledge to plan for them. Use what we know about how their brain is currently working and what it's currently capable of and what we currently need to practice in order to get them to the next level. The more experiences and understanding they have, the quicker they are at abstraction. Middle-aged students. Understand that middle level years are transitional. Guys, nobody likes their middle school years. Oh my goodness, mine were terrible. I was called Chewbacca in middle school because I was not allowed to shave. And my legs, my parents were like very strict, and I'm like a hairy Mexican girl. And so it's a very weird time. And so it's not changed at all for the children today. And in fact, I think it's gotten worse for them because of social media. I mean, like, I was only called Chewbacca sometimes by mean boys, but like it didn't carry on, and nobody emailed me about it or put posts or made TikToks. And I can't even imagine living in this time period. So it's a difficult time just all the time. And then now for our students, it's a little bit worse. And we have to be a little bit more sympathetic to that and sort of heightened to that. And the students may exhibit characteristics of both older and younger children. No one child, just like I said, everyone's diverse. None of the children sort of like develop exactly the same. It's not like once they reach an age that automatically their brain is at this level, or like cognitively, or they can think abstractly, or their maturity level. It's not the way that it works. It's based on like experience, support, and so a lot of stuff working there. And that's where we come in. We bring in healthy experiences and provide support. And so these are critical years for developing important skills and attitudes about themselves and about others, and about just life in general. It's a excellent, I mean, not the first place, but an excellent place to sort of reinforce those skills for bettering themselves, like goal creation and responsible risk taking and all of those things that junior high students need to be talked about and have conversations. Working and getting along with others, obviously, appreciating diversity, Kids in middle school like to do a whole bunch of like homogeneous stuff, like us and them. And so getting them to appreciate diversity, getting them to engage in activities, geared towards that and with diverse populations, very important. And making a commitment to continued schooling, just getting them to still be interested. And again, guys, making their learning experience fun. If your class is fun, people will want to come to it. Nobody will skip. I promise you. You will have people want to skip in your class, and you will have to tell them, absolutely not. You will go to class and come to my class when it's your class period. You can make it a fun and engaging learning environment, but you have to value the people that are there. Come to them where they're at and be real with them. They're not perfect. Little kids are growing, and many of them come from just really terrible, terrible home lives. And we ask them to do amazing tasks, and they do it. And they will continue to do it and rise to our expectations if you believe in them. I've never had a student not rise to my expectations. Just simply because I believed that they could do it. And then that was enough. That was enough for them to believe that they could do it. And then they did it. So teachers are really so very important. It's important for us to remember that different ages have different needs. Recognize how characteristics of students at different developmental levels, impact teaching and learning. Their developmental levels and where they are impact what we do. They impact the things that we put in, the safeguards we put in place. We have far more routines and procedures for EC through 6. Why? Because they need it. If you have a lot of ELL students, you better have a lot of routines and procedures to make things less chaotic, less stressful, to make it to where we can focus on the content and the actual activity and not so much on what comes next. But paying attention to the characteristics of those different age groups and grade levels and making sure that we sort of compensate or that we account for it in our planning, that we've taken it into consideration and that we have removed barriers for learning. And the barriers come in all shapes and sizes. So these are some ways that they're different. The different age groups. They have limited attention spans, need for physical activity and movement for younger children, but also middle school kids need movement also. Importance of peers, search for identity, questioning of values, and exploration of long-term career and life goals for other students, and how this impacts. How does this impact your teaching? If you're teaching high school and you're teaching juniors and seniors, why wouldn't you bring in as much as possible how your content area translates to a job in some way, shape, or form? So A, they can see the connection, and B, if they're good at it, they might say, you know what, I could be an engineer, or I could do this. They're already thinking about those things. All high school students at that age are. My daughter is a freshman at UTSA this year, and I swear the last 2 years, she thought she had to have everything figured out, just like everything. And they're so anxious, and we can be helpful by providing them with options. That's it. That's all it is. Options and information. Creative classrooms. We're still in competency 4, guys, which is about putting it all together in the classroom plan that is engaging and continuously assessing. Creative classrooms. You should stimulate reflection in your classroom. You should stimulate critical thinking and inquiry among students. Support the concept of play. Play is so valuable. Play is so valuable, not just for younger children's learning. Play is valuable even for the older ones. If students were like met the different requirements or whatever goals I set for them, we'd play a game in my classroom. And it literally was a game. Like, you can buy it in the stores. It's a game. It just is a game. But it's a wonderful game if you're an English language arts teacher or if you have ELL students and they love it. It's called Categories. Different cards. They have categories. You have to like come up with you roll a dice that has letters on it, and then you can only answer the card, the list, name things using that letter. So you have to think of just with a B, and all of your answer choices have to come out with B. And you have to be creative, because if somebody thinks of the same thing that you said, like one list would be like things that you find in a school, like one question, or like things that you find on a bus, and it only can start with the letter B or whatever letter you choose. And so they have to be really creative and think about things and find words that aren't basic to try to like win the points for their groups. And the students loved it. And honestly, and I would say, they'd say, can we play categories? No, maybe next Friday, you guys do whatever it is that I needed them to do. And then it was just so much fun, and they loved it. And it didn't matter if they were junior high years or high schoolers that were seniors. It always was fun, and they always wanted to play it. And it was language learning still. There, you can infuse play if you're creative, and create critical thinking if you're creative, and you must do it, because then it becomes that place where like, I want to go there, no longer a thing that like, I want to skip, or I want to be sick, or I'm going to put on my AirPods, because now that is a thing. Now there's AirPods, and they can just put their hair over their AirPods and they're listening to music. There needs to be a buy-in, an engagement, and play can be academic. It's not rocket science. You can be challenging and have it be fun at the same time. So not just for younger children, this talks about younger children a lot, using manipulative materials to test ideas and hypotheses, engaging students in structured hands-on problem solving activities that are challenging. This is very important for all students, especially our GT students. They need structured hands-on problem solving, challenging stuff, because if not, they get bored. And when they get bored, their brain shuts down, and they're just like not going to be in it anymore. And it's unfortunate, because all of our students are brilliant in that way. And our GT students really have like a remarkable brilliance, but it's so easy to be turned off, especially in junior high and high school. If they don't see a connection, if it isn't challenging, if they don't see themselves in the learning environment, cognitively, their brains work differently and will not engage. So encourage exploration and risk-taking and responsible risk-taking. And that's a good skill to have. You can't go through life never taking a risk, because you'll never advance or push yourself. But there's such a thing as a responsible risk-taking, and we need to provide opportunities for the students to engage in things like that. Create a learning environment or learning community that promotes positive contributions, effective communication, and the respectful exchange of ideas. I've often spoken to you guys about how I take the first week and I don't start the curriculum, and I literally do other stuff. And a lot of it is like sort of learning community building and talking about what our expectations are and what I expect of the exchanges and what I expect upon hearing ideas that maybe you think are weird or strange, and what type of a discourse and dialogue we're going to have in the classroom, and setting it off from day one. I also very strongly give the students the sense that we have a goal together, because we all do. Like every district, every campus has a goal that they're trying to achieve or meet or whatever. So it was like Miss Sauceda's class, against the other classes, us. And we had this like very close team feeling, community feeling, and where we did respect each other. And it was the law of the land. Bloom's taxonomy, keeping that in the forefront of your mind, because we want to be having the students engage in activities that are at the higher level, that are not at the 3 lower ones, but are at the 3 higher ones, that are at the evaluate, analysis, and synthesis. Synthesis is creation. Anytime they're creating things, they're using the highest of critical thinking. So enhancing learning for students by providing age-appropriate instruction that encourages the use of refinement of those higher order thinking skills, to look at things from different perspectives, to have our questions be more open-ended. We're not yes or no, where they can think and have to sort of like discover and provide evidence or proof or back up, validate their responses, promote also the students' development of research skills. And I don't remember my elementary teacher in the 4th or 5th grade, but I wish I could remember her name. but she was excellent at research. She would take us every 6 weeks and we did little informational research projects. And I did one on Harriet Tubman, and she became a hero of mine from a very young age. But man, she started research skills so early and it was just meticulous about it and awesome in her implementation. I wish I knew her name, that I could find her and tell her I really like her pedagogy so many years ago. Okay, I do, we do, you do. Teaching, modeling, and monitoring the students, right? Establishing regular places for classroom toys, materials for young children, keeping related materials together, just having everything where they can find it, where you can find it and they can find it. Because we do teach them, model them. We do it together, you do it. And in that, there is sometimes chaos. There needs to be effective strategies for locating not only materials, but also information, especially with those older students. Providing scaffolds for success. You must teach, model, and monitor age-appropriate study skills using graphic organizers. So whenever we're reading something or after we've read something, utilizing graphic organizers together to organize what we just read, what we learned. All of these things must be modeled before your students can use them. You cannot simply give students a graphic organizer and then y'all read a text together and say, okay, guys, fill out the graphic organizer. That will never be successful. You have to utilize, you have to do the I do and show them how I'm going to use this. I am using this graphic organizer. Then later we're going to you do. Not you do. And then we're going to we do it. We read something and we are going to utilize this graphic organizer, and then you can use it and I can implement it as a thing that we will utilize. And still I'm going to like reteach those things. Every single one of these graphic organizers, outlining, note taking, summarizing, all of these things must be modeled. You must show the students how to do it, what an acceptable product looks like, and how they will get there. So teaches students the steps in research, establishes checkpoints during research projects. Guys, you should establish checkpoints during all projects. You should establish checkpoints during your lesson, checking for understanding. So utilize checkpoints a lot and have those little stopping markers where you check for comprehension. It's excellent best practice for ELL students, special ed students, and all of our struggling learners. And anyone can be a struggling learner given the right circumstance. It can be anyone. Reflect on your instruction and planning. Very important, guys. We have to reflect. Are we doing a good job? Is what we're doing working? Analyze ways in which teacher behaviors impact student learning and plan instruction and assessment that minimize the effects of negative factors and enhances all student learning. So like teacher expectations, student grouping practices, teacher-student interactions, just like the way in which you interact, the way in which you implement the instruction. Is it working, and are there negative factors? What is the grouping like? Do you need to rethink it? Is it working? Teacher interactives, are they productive or are they superficial? It should not be superficial teacher-student interactions, just walking by the desk and saying, oh, good job. What are the teacher-student interactions actually like in the classroom? They should be meaningful, fruitful, not superficial. Analyze other barriers. Analyze ways in which factors in the home and the community, for instance, parent expectations, availability of community resources or even home resources, community problems, impact student learning, and plans instruction and assessment with awareness of social and cultural factors to enhance all student learning. Taking it into consideration, thinking about what barriers do my students have and how can I remove these to enhance instruction. You can't do it all. You can't make it perfect for your students, but you can certainly remove barriers by paying attention to certain things that we know for a fact impede on student success. Teach self-direction. Our goal always is for the students to be self-directed learners once they leave us. And so we have to give them practice, chances. We have to plan for activities that will promote the students' ability and motivation to be, in charge of their own learning. I'm telling you, once you do it, they're off to the races and you can't stop them, even if you want to give them like some sort of advice. But, building that importance of self-directed learning and then you planning for it. You can't just say it's really important that you do these things for yourself. You have to build opportunities for them to do self-directed things and have responsibility and take ownership for their learning. We can do this best by giving them options, giving them choices, giving them agency, allowing them to take risks by making choices, responsible risk taking, but a choice that they're responsible for. And typically a student will choose something that they're interested in and that they feel like they can do well. Give them the opportunity to choose something that they're going to shine. Roles. Analyze ways in which various teacher roles and student roles impact student learning. So like, and I always used to start off my session showing you just this very basic graphic of teacher-centered instruction and student-centered. And so when you're the facilitator or the lecturer, you're really not listening to the students and open and like monitoring their learning. We want the student to be active learners and not just like people sitting there while you pour knowledge into their brains, because that's actually not the way it works. They cannot be passive observers. They have to be active participants. And so just like really being mindful, what are the roles here in my classroom predominantly or in given situations, and how does that impact how my students are like learning in the classroom and engaging in the activities. Include all learning styles, always, every day, all the time. Auditory, visual, tactile in every single instructional practice. And then we're back to the ELPs. The ELPs, strategies for all, providing instruction to ensure that the students can apply various learning strategies across content areas. So provide instruction to ensure that students can apply various learning strategies using prior knowledge, metacognition, thinking about their thinking, graphic organizers, in order to be able to do well in all content areas. Provide instruction in a manner that is linguistically, that's language, linguistics is language, linguistically accommodated, communicated, sequenced, scaffolded to the student's level of English proficiency, whether it be beginner, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high, to ensure that the student learns the knowledge and skills across content areas, so knows the TEXES, and is actively gaining English as a second language. Big, tall ask for our ELL students. With our SIOP model, it's really important that we build background knowledge, explicitly linking concepts to the students' background experiences, that lasso, making explicit links between past learning experiences or past learning that they've had and new concepts, and absolutely emphasizing key academic vocabulary and social vocabulary that you think might be confusing. Another component of the SIOP model is comprehensible input. Is it understandable what you're saying to them, the input with which they're receiving? Speak appropriately for students' proficiency levels. Where are they at? Provide clear explanations of the academic tasks that might involve linguistic scaffolds in order for you to be able to do that. Use a variety of techniques to make concepts clear. Visuals, auditory, tactile, manipulatives, to total response to language to make language clear. Provide ample opportunities for students to use learning strategies and consistently use the scaffolds. Consistently use those scaffolds and techniques. With consistency, the scaffold is no longer needed. They can reach that level by themselves. Use a variety of questions or tasks that would promote higher order thinking skills, utilizing those tasks that make us do analysis, evaluate, and create, even if the language isn't all fully formed yet. Provide frequent, myriad, manifold, millions of opportunities for interaction, discussion, for listening and speaking skills. That has to happen. The interaction is so important for our ELL students. Group students to support their language and content objectives of the lesson. Be mindful with your group cooperative configurations. The students should be resources to each other. You want to consistently provide sufficient wait time for students and their responses in small group, large group, and one-on-one conversations. Give the students ample opportunities to clarify key concepts in their first language, main concepts, especially with our beginners. We have to supply hands-on materials for students to practice using new content knowledge, provide activities for them to apply that content knowledge and the language associated with the content knowledge. And we have to provide a consistent, comprehensive review of key vocabulary before and after instruction to clear up language barriers. Monitor the students' cognitive growth. Obviously, we're trying to get them to move from concrete students to abstract thinkers. All right, guys, I don't know what time we're at. Oh, we're still doing good. We're at the question. So you can all unmute yourselves and we are going to read this. We're going to, again, the strategies are to always read the questions mindfully. This is a critical reading exam. Every TEXES exam is above all a critical reading exam, meaning that the words are chosen so very carefully. Thousands of dollars are spent on the creation of each question, which is why they're so crazy about testing security. And so it behooves you to look at each scenario and question with a critical eye, analyzing for keywords and phrases. We've talked about several overarching ideas, ELLs, grade levels, diversity. Anytime those ideas come up, those are keywords and phrases. And we know we do particular things to support those students. Okay, so let's read this one. Who can I get? Because guys, I'm so tired of talking. Can I get someone to read this for me? And I will do the highlighting.
I will.
Thank you so much, Miss Ennis.
Okay, so it reads, in a science class that includes English language learners, ELLs, a teacher encourages all students to monitor their own level of understanding by having them take notes in their journals as they read assigned text. What is the primary purpose of teaching ELLs, in particular, the skill of learning how to monitor understanding?
All right, so let's highlight some stuff. What's important for us to pay attention to?
English language learners.
Absolutely. We have ELL students.
The teachers wanting them to monitor their own level of understanding.
Uh-huh.
By taking notes in their journal as well.
Right, so they have notes in their journal. What else? What is the question in layman's terms asking us? Just in basic. What does primary purpose mean?
The main reason why they're doing it.
Perfect. What's the main reason in teaching ELLs in particular? Because the teacher does it with all students, right? But in particular, What's the main reason to do this? This skill of learning how to monitor understanding. Let's take a look. A, decreasing the student's intimidation associated with learning a new language. B, acknowledging the prior cultural experiences of the student. C, cultivating a positive environment in which the students can learn. D, promoting students' ability to adjust their thinking as needed. So we're looking for the primary reason we would do this with ELL students in particular, having them monitor their own understanding by taking notes. What can we bet ourselves $5 is not the right answer? Because I never want for you to like just try to choose the correct answer. I want for you to say, I'm for sure. A?
A.
Yes.
Definitely A.
A for sure. Like this is not going to help decrease anything. So no.
Also B.
B.
Also B, it's not at all doing that. Is there said anywhere in there about cultural experiences?
No.
Not
No.
at all. Not at all. This is a science class, and in their readings, they're taking notes. It's nothing to do with culture. So we can safely bet B is not the right answer. We're left with C and D, cultivating a positive environment in which students can learn, or promoting the students' ability to adjust their thinking as needed. What's the main reason? If you had to choose one main reason.
D.
D, promoting the students' ability to adjust their thinking as needed.
Absolutely. And look how they repeat themselves a little bit. Ability to adjust their thinking as needed. What is this? Isn't that semantics for monitoring your understanding?
Yes.
Absolutely. And they'll do that a lot. So look for similar language in the correct answer, just semantically stated differently. All right. We have a social studies teacher is planning a unit for National Hispanic Heritage Month. Which of the following activities will best engage kinesthetic learners? So what keywords are we looking for?
Social studies teacher.
Yes, that's true, but it's not so much important. Whenever they give us a content area, it's not as important. Because it's not really about the content, it's about what they're doing. And so they're
Okay.
planning a unit of some sort. And they're, what else? Whenever they say best, you should think maybe they've given you more than one okay response. And we want to
Kinesthetic?
kinesthetic. We want to engage kinesthetic, which means we want to like speak to them and like get them interested, engage the kinesthetic learners. So we're looking for the best way to do this when planning a unit. So let's take a look at these answer choices. We have A, observing performers model dances from different regions of Mexico, creating masks like those traditionally used in Ponce Carnaval in Puerto Rico. C, identifying important geographical features of Argentina, comparing the monetary system of Colombia to that of the United States. Okay, again, we're going to use the process of elimination. What can we bet ourselves $5 is not the best example of an activity that would engage kinesthetic or tactile learners.
A.
Observing.
I heard A and D for sure. Observing is no, because we're not moving anything. And comparing money, no. We're left with B and C, creating masks and identifying important geographical features on a map of Argentina.
The answer would be B,
B.
creating.
B.
Absolutely. The answer is B. And this again is just speaking to the kinesthetic. If it had been a question about, auditory learners, the only correct answer would have been the one that has them using sound. So careful reading of what the question is asking us and mindful of the different, remember all of these are competency 4, so this is asking us about the best learning preference for students and activities connected. Which of the following strategies best supports a teacher's goal to incorporate critical thinking skill? Oops, sorry guys. critical thinking skills into language arts lessons. So we're looking for what? What keywords and phrases? What is the question asking us?
Teacher's goal
The teacher's goal, which is what?
to incorporate critical thinking.
Critical thinking skills. That's it. And we're going to best support critical thinking skills. We're looking for a strategy. So let's take a look at these. A, providing students with opportunities to seek additional content knowledge. B, creating a forum for students to debate points of view. C, having students individually summarize various literature read. D, asking students to create practice questions as a review activity.
We can eliminate D, asking to create practice questions.
This one, to create practice questions. You want to eliminate D?
Yes.
Are you sure about that? What can we eliminate for sure that is
Having
not critical
B.
thinking skills?
C.
Which one?
C.
Summarization. We know it is not
Critical thinking.
thinking. It's not critical thinking.
So I believe that when they do critical thinking, it has points of view because they're thinking and debate. So I like B, but I don't know if that's the correct answer.
I like B too. I do like B too.
Because they're debating and they're doing a critical thinking. They're using that skill.
And what else can we eliminate? Pretty well.
A.
Absolutely. A.
B.
And then we're left with B and C, and they're both creation. Remember, the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy and critical thinking is synthesis. Synthesis is creation. And both of these, and this was meant to be tricky, but you were very, very good with your wanting to get rid of it, Miss Ramos. Even though it is still creation, it is not as critical thinking as the students coming up with their points of view for debate. It's still creation, their points of view in a debate. But it's more critical thinking than just practice questions as a review activity. So B is the correct answer.
Ma'am, so for critical thinking, when
Yes.
they're asking for the critical thinking, what is like the key? Like right now, I know we're going over this one. Like to me, I was like first I was actually chose D. Or you know what, I would have chosen A because it provides students the opportunity to seek additional content and knowledge.
Right. And so providing them with opportunities doesn't mean that they're going to take those opportunities. You're just providing them with the opportunities, and maybe some of them will take them and maybe some of them won't. B is a situation where everyone has to sort of participate, and everyone is going to, and depending on what they read, the teacher would post something, maybe a comment, a visual, and then the students have to like debate or comment on that. And that would be a higher level of critical thinking than just providing them with opportunities. But this brings me to a good stopping point. And I also wanted to go and show you guys the just review really quickly, especially since you asked.
Are all of these questions in our drive?
Yes, ma'am. And the PowerPoints are also in your drive as well.
Okay. Thank you so
And-
much.
Absolutely. So you'll take a look at these, and this is like the most recent Bloom's taxonomy, and you have creation at the top, synthesis evaluation, analyzing, applying, understanding, and remembering. But this is what I like a lot because it gives you all of those words, those verbs, you know, that the student can do. So whenever they are adapting, doing an ensemble, composing, constructing, creating, designing, developing, facilitating, hypothesizing, integrating, inventing, modifying, negotiating, planning, proposing, any of those things, all of these are going to be higher level critical thinking skills, whereas defining, describing, examining, listing, matching, locating, those aren't super high level critical thinking skills. And sometimes they try to like trick you. They'll say, oh, you know, Miss Sauceda's biology class is, you know, doing a project on mitosis. Which of the following activities would be best for critical thinking? I'll say recalling the levels of mitosis, or, you know, and that sounds fancy, but it's not. It's just recalling. That's not fancy at all. That's like the very not critical thinking. Having them develop a model that shows mitosis, you know, that is higher critical thinking than some of the others. So be careful and do pay attention to the language that is associated with tasks that are more critical thinking. And we'll leave that here for today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Stephanie, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
have
not
a
at all.
question about that last question that we went over.
Mm-hmm.
One was teacher-centered and the other one was student-centered. Can you pull it up for me? I'm sorry.
With the question,
Yes.
let me see. Let me see. Oh, I know where it is. It was here. This one that we were doing?
Important, critical. Okay, creating a form for students. So that one was teacher-centered, where the teacher was creating a form. And the other one, and D, was asking students to grade. So that one was student-centered. Will that make a difference if we get a question like that on the
I
test?
mean, because to be honest with you, it caused pause for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the critical thinking skills into the language arts lesson, just the technology,
Mm-hmm.
the debating, and the various points of view, because competency 4 asks us to do that, to force the students to look at different perspectives, to force them to utilize like new technologies, to like that's why I'm saying B is the best answer over D, even though D is higher up on critical thinking. But as far as for the art lessons, I want to say the debate is going to be the forum is going to be a better resource.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I also, I thought the same thing. You know, great minds think alike. But I did see that also, that it was that one was more of a teacher creation, but it was a creating a forum for them to actually debate, and debate is higher on the critical thinking.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm gonna go ahead and get y'all that this here. Some of y'all don't have the link. I'm gonna put it in the chat box if y'all would open it there, and that way you can have it in your
Is this for everyone, Miss Sauceda, what you're sending?
oh yes. Oh, it just sent it only to one person. Never mind. Let me just send it to everyone right now. It only
Okay.
sends to Ileana. It should be for
Okay.
everyone right now.
Okay, thank you, Miss Sauceda. And this is the one that we just went over with?
That's correct. It's in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Miss
So
Sauceda, sorry that I interrupt you.
no.
In reference to Frank Sauceda, to see if he has the jobs opening something for biology, because I know that a lot of school districts are looking for science teachers.
Yes, yes. I will text